Welcome to the 1455 Summer Fest. I just want to thank you all for joining us for this session titled Food Innovation, the Culinary Experience in Storytelling. We're very happy you could be with us today as part of the 1455 Summer Festival hosted by 1455 Literary Arts. We have two special guests today. I'll be moderating and we'll have two panelists. We have Wendell Alsbrook. He's the owner of Georgetown Butcher. And we have Erin Roth. She is the owner of Miss Joe's Petite Sweet. So welcome to you both. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me today.
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me today.
Awesome. Well, we're going to be talking all about the culinary experience, which I know you both love, and also storytelling. And I know that there's a lot of stories around food and just the culinary experience in general. So I guess it'd be great to just have you both try to just give a little bit about yourselves, tell the audience a little about yourselves, and, how did you each find your way to the culinary world? What drew you to it? And we'll start with Erin, because why not? Ladies first.
All right. Queen Latifah. So I'm Erin Roth. I'm the CEO, founder, and executive pastry chef of Miss Joe's Petite Sweets. I started my business right before I retired from the United States Army. And so I served 24 years and 15 days as a human resource officer. And how I got into food was, I've been around food all my life. You have to eat. Everyone has to eat. And growing up in Mississippi, where food was a center stone or a centerpiece of all celebrations, good or bad, from funerals to weddings to birthdays to whatever. And so food was a huge part of that. And to see my mother, my grandmothers, and my aunts and other women in my family just put together, they were the early, to me, master chefs. And then seeing, the men in my family cook as well. They were great, great chefs as well, from grilling to killing hogs and cattle, to just doing a whole bunch of things to see how the true farm to table, before it became fashionable, down south, it was always farm to table. And so right before I retired, I decided that I would just do something to keep me busy post-retirement. And my mother had a saying, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plan. So my plan was to start, just do something like some, desserts, cupcakes, things along that line. And now God is laughing, because now I call myself building my food empire. And so we've gone from desserts to corporate and private catering, and to very soon have our own brick and mortar. So life is great, and God is definitely laughing at me.
I love it. I can always hear a story 1,010 times, Erin. It's beautiful. So how about you, Wendell?
So my name is Wendell Alsbrook. I'm a Washingtonian. I grew up in Washington, D.C. And I started working at Sutton Place Gourmet Balducci's. And then what that led to was an opportunity to work at a butcher shop, Organic Butcher in McLean. And then when I started working there in 2005, I became very passionate about butchering and different animals and the quality of the product and all of the fun stuff that related to the butchering, organic butcher, their concept. So what I was able to do was after 15 to 20 years working in the culinary business, I was able to start my first company, Georgetown Butcher. And I started this company last year, March 9th, 2020. And so it was, it was a little crazy, but, I was able to keep the business up and going, and just been really focused on the concept and really focused on becoming a business owner. And that's just about it, what I have say about starting the first company.
Well, as we know, March 9th, 2020, and then the pandemic hit, at least, it was an essential place of business, right, Wendell?
Yes. A lot of people in the community here in Georgetown, they relied on us for product. We was like wanted to go to business in the neighborhood that had groceries, had produce, had different cuts, different selections of meats. So we was able to be a huge part of the community here in Georgetown.
That's awesome. So question, as we are talking about storytelling, and that is literary arts, as that is, what the foundation of this organization is built upon. Is your approach to food driven by any particular stories? I mean, I know I grew up with some really famous dishes as a Mediterranean Jew. I got the latkes and I got the Greek salad. So I definitely have some stories myself behind my culinary experience growing up. So I'm curious, Aaron, is there any particular drivers or recipes or anything that kind of shaped where, your approach now?
Oh, yes. I call it a story of the cream puffs. I still am an avid reader, and much thanks in part to my mother. So I remember reading a story about a young girl who loved cream puffs so much, she dreamed about them. And so she made cream puffs, and she just described kind of like how on the movie Forrest Gump, when the bud was talking about the shrimp. And so she was talking about the cream puffs the same way. And so I looked through my mother's cookbooks. She had quite a few, and I found a recipe for cream puffs, also known as profiteroles. Anyway, so I was like, I'm determined to make these cream puffs, see what they're all about. And so I think I was 9 or 10. I was really, really young. And so I went in the kitchen and I was determined. And I followed the recipe as best I could, but tablespoons and teaspoons are different. We're talking about teaspoons and other things. So yeah, the soup spoon's not the same. So needless to say, they came out a little flat, but my baby brothers ate them anyway. So that was my first foray into desserts. And I love desserts. I love how people feel when they eat desserts. Their whole face changes. And so desserts are my passion. I love desserts. I love what it brings to people. It's always usually a great celebration behind a centerpiece of dessert. So that's my story behind how I got into desserts. And then obviously we've also do, corporate and private catering as well. But my first and foremost passion are desserts.
Yum. How about you, Wendell?
So, like growing up around food, like that always been everybody family experience. So when I was able to learn more important details on like how the animal get raised, how the product is supposed to taste, and how the chicken, like organic chicken versus the chicken at the supermarkets and different quality product. So that made me more interested in finding the highest quality product, like sourcing product and making sure, like I'm selling the most highest quality product that's on the market. And so when I was growing up as a kid, we just went to the supermarket. We just bought what we was able to afford and what we was able to buy. And so now it's totally different now because of the product I sell now inside my store. It's just like people rave about it. They always tell me it's like the best product that they ever had. And it makes my heart smile like every time like somebody come inside the store. It's like, look, wow, this is the best piece of meat. This is the best piece of seafood. This is the best piece of chicken that I ever had. And it's just like, like me and my team, me and my coworkers, we just love hearing people feedback.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes your heart warm too, Aaron. It's like, I think food is really like the entryway to anyone's heart. I mean, I'm not going to try to conduct business development during this panel because that's not what I'm doing, but like offline, both in the DMV, you got the desserts and you got the meat. I mean, that would make a very happy catering event.
Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. When I read Wendell's bio, I was like, oh my God. All right, first of all, a butcher? Okay, yes, I need to talk to you. So I would definitely be reaching out to you, Wendell, after this, because we need to talk some wholesale accounts.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, given both for at least from what I've heard so far is that a lot of this culinary and food is rooted from childhood, right? And so I think that in general, how, you really put love into what you make. I could always tell my mom hated cooking, so I didn't feel the love in my dinners that I had, but my grandmother, you could feel the love that she put into the frittatas that I always had. But I'm curious, how do you think stories can drive culinary arts? I mean, we even look at the pandemic, for example, and, looking at different restaurants and food businesses and the hospitality. I mean, just the stories that we're seeing in these uplifting stories, how is that driving culinary arts, and vice versa? How do you think food can drive stories? Whoever wants to start.
Sorry, my puppy's trying to get my attention here. I remember when I was coming to the kitchen, I one time I asked my great aunt, I won't say her name, and she's long past, but she always had this pot of water on the stove, and I was like, why is this pot of water on the stove? Or, it's summertime, it's hot, and she looked at me just a straight face and said, "In case your uncle act up." And I was a little kid. I was just like, what is she talking about? As I got older, I realized, I saw. But I remember when I was looking at my grandmother one time, she was cooking cornbread. And every time she was cooking, she was always talking about some type of family history. And so I learned a lot about the different family members whenever the adults in my family at that time were cooking, and just being passing. It wasn't like they were sitting down and say, okay, gather around and listen, but it was just a matter of fact type of thing. And I learned so much about, a lot of my ancestors that way, just different things in life. And it was just amazing. And I look back, I wish I had listened more and talked less. Obviously it'd been great if we had iPhones during those times. You could have recorded a lot of these histories. I learned how listened to one of my cousins. She was my grandfather's first cousin Lucille, and she was talking one time. She always would make these chocolate cakes with it was a yellow cake with chocolate frosting, and one of my favorites. I remember one time we would always go up to her house, and she was talking in this story about how my ancestors came from the East Coast to Mississippi. And she was telling the story as she was preparing. I can't remember whatever. And it was just amazing hearing that story, and how at night they got separated on the wagon trail. And so some of the Hardaways kept going to the north. It was just, as a little kid, she was like, wow, people are on wagon, so it was always stories. I don't think they really meant it, but just a way of them just telling the stories. And it's just, I look back now and I wish I had listened more and talked less. But yeah, those are some great times.
Yeah, I was told I was always a chatterbox, so I get it, Aaron. How about you, Wendell?
So back in 2005, when I first really started working at the butcher shop in McLean. So I had previous experience from certain place, Balducci's, but I started around Christmas time. And so what that led me to do was like trimming tenderloins and cutting lamb rocks on a bandsaw, something that I never done before. And so, and it became like a traditional thing with, started cooking for my family every Thanksgiving. And, it always been that I work so hard at the butcher shop, and then I have to come home and cook for the family. And it just like became passionate about, serving all the turkeys, serving all the holiday products. And then you go home and cook with your family. And like each year, the conversations keep going. I always tell my family, like, if I'm here for Thanksgiving, I'm doing a good job. I'm always looking forward to hanging out with my family around Thanksgiving. So
yeah. I think frankly, Thanksgiving happened, but I think the Thanksgiving and all the holidays in general, you have the Christmas ham. I've always wanted to celebrate Christmas just because of the ham. But I just think, the experience that you have when the experience you have when you're eating food, right? I mean, frankly, the one thing I missed during the pandemic was going to restaurants. But I went to the restaurant to experience the food getting served to you, right? And I think there's one thing of me having to make food in my kitchen, which is great because the result's good, but I'm always not that hungry at the end of the day after I've made it. I'm like, this looks good, but I don't know. I was snacking during the whole time while I'm making it. But I think when you go out, or even if you do get that beautiful cake or a beautiful piece of meat that actually from the Georgetown Bookstore, you just make very easily and it tastes good. It's like, you want that experience from getting your food. So I'm wondering, what customer feedback, or what are you hoping people get, or your customers or clients get, when they come home with a cake, or, have a catering experience by you, Erin, or come home with a nice ribeye from you, Wendell?
For me, it's sort of like one of my favorite animated movies, Ratatouille. And you remember in the story in the show where the food critic happened to eat the ratatouille, and his whole face, he went to a place when he was a little boy, knee high to his mother's, and he just, and they brought him to that experience. And that's what I want people to experience every time they eat something from my kitchen. And so I'm not going to, it's like an addiction. I'm going to say that's the wrong word, but it's something I strive for every time, is to create a great experience, because I want people to remember that no matter what the event was, what the occasion was, I want them to remember, man, what was in that sauce on that steak, or man, what was in that cake? That's not the typical red velvet cake I grew up on, or why is her chicken breast not so dry like everybody else's chicken? You just want people to be like, man, I want them to try to analyze the meal and be like, oh, that was so good. What was it? I can't put my taste buds on that ingredient, but man, that was awesome. And so that's what I strive for. I want people to have great, happy thoughts, because particularly with last year, we all have so much more to celebrate for. As we say down south, if you're on this side of River Jordan, you have something to celebrate. And so life is too short, and food as a way of just bringing everybody together. I think of food as like the great equalizer. I tell people, if you're going to be in a contentious meeting with a corporate or even with your family, I tell people, serve dessert first. It gets everybody in the right mood. It gets everybody in the right mood, because when you eat dessert, you're happy. It's hard to eat a dessert and be frowning. It's just really hard. And so I tell people, you serve a dessert, it gets everybody in the right mood, and you can move forward with any type of business or family transaction you want to discuss. Even I tell people, my friends who are married, I say, if you're going to be upset with your spouse, something's going to happen, serve their favorite dessert first and then talk. Guarantee you'll get whatever you want. It works.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I remember you saying that, and I think the thing is that about dessert too, and Erin, you made a good point before I let Wendell respond, is that I think that the one thing that we've really seen over the past forever, I mean, let's be real, it wasn't just this past year, it's been forever, is that polarizing. The world's polarizing. And I like to use the word bonding. And I think food is the one thing that we can all bond over well, now the pandemic, we can all bond over as a whole world, but food is one thing we can all bond over. And I think to that point, breaking bread, you can break bread we're all neighbors while breaking bread. So I just wanted to reiterate that point, Erin, before Wendell responded.
So the thing about the ribeye I sell and all the other products, I always tell the clients, the new customers, that you should only use salt, pepper, and olive oil. And you should have the natural flavor of the meat. You should want to experience that. And secondly, if you get this product from me 5 years ago, it should still have the same quality product. It should never drop off. That's what I'm big with my purveyors, the people I source the product from, that, no matter if you come in December, if you come in June, or if you come in March, it should always be the same quality. It shouldn't go up. It shouldn't go down. It might go up, but it shouldn't go down. It's just, And then once you develop the natural taste buds of just tasting meat, well, like not a lot of sauce on it, and then like that's the quality of the stuff that you should be looking for, and coming to like a gourmet butcher like myself.
Yeah. I love that, because my dad said, if you have to put sauce on your steak, then that's not a good steak. I grew up with that, and so I truly enjoy you saying that, Wendell. It doesn't, because the ribeye is my favorite cut of steak, by the way. And you're right, just some salt and pepper and a little oil, and you good to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, so I live in Georgetown, and Wendell, that's where I discovered, the great meats of Georgetown Butcher. Aaron, you still owe me a red velvet cupcake. I think we're going to have to do this in person. But someone who's not know how to make meat, I will say, like, I was like, how do I make this ribeye? It's like salt, pepper, olive oil. I'm like, there's no way that this thing's coming out well. I was cooking for my parents and who I haven't seen in like a long time because of Cove. And they were like, this is the best rib I've ever had in my life. I'm like, but there's no way, because I was making that in my like, non-gas, like electric stove over here, but it's because it was the cut of the meat, it was the cut of the meat, and just let the meat speak for itself.
Thank you.
So speaking of food and storytellers, I'm not sure if you are avid readers, but we will just say you both are avid readers since, we're on a storytelling panel. So do you have any favorite food storytellers that you could, shout out?
I like Ina Garten. I'm not sure. She's the Barefoot Contessa. She has great stories about her food, and particularly when she talks about her husband, you just see her face just light up. I like her storytelling. I do.
How about you, Wendell?
I was always fascinated with Bobby Flay. He cooked.
Yes.
It's like when I was watching the Food Network, I say 2005, 2000, all the way up to like 2010, maybe 2012. I kind of laid off of Food Network a little bit because I got kind of busy doing my own thing. So Bobby Flay, he was cooking on a green egg like for a long time. And then I was able to actually start selling the green eggs at Organic Butcher. But he always said this salt, pepper, and olive oil on the steaks. And a little crushed red pepper. So I will always use this recommendation to tell people how to cook. And he just had a simple way of cooking. He just, like whatever he did it simple. And I don't know if y'all seen him cook before. It was always just a little bit of like not a lot of technique, just a lot of simple cooking.
Yeah, I think when it comes to kind of the idea of what you need to be putting in, I never really followed any recipes. So I kind of let my food tell its own story. Because I think recipes, unless you're baking, Aaron, I know that when you're baking, you have to kind of follow recipes. But like outside of that, if it's just like not baking, I don't believe in recipes, because it's like, that's the fun part. It's like, oh, what's that? It's like, oh, I just decided to add that in the end. There's no rule for the amount of garlic. I don't think there's like ever enough garlic, but I think, to your point, like, it's just like, that's what's so fun about, I think food is really art, but like, also it's like, you can taste it and all that jazz. So I think it's just really interesting. And, if we look at the kind of past and of history and looking at storytelling and food, not to get all philosophical, but, Aaron, last time I had you on a podcast, I think we got pretty philosophical and got pretty deep there. But do you think that storytelling has, a wider purpose to serve?
Yes, I just think it's coming full circle. When you look at the days when man didn't have books to read and things to write, and so they passed down history of the family through storytelling, and I see it now coming full circle, and it's just so important. There's a show on I think it's Netflix called High on the Hall, where it discusses the African American culinary history and why certain foods mean so much to us. And so just to hear those stories is really inspiring, because despite what we've gone through, we've still persevered and we're here, and that's just by the grace of God. And so, but yeah, for me, it's just, yeah, it means a lot. When I was home, I was in Mississippi doing my baby brother's wedding. I did his wedding cake and his dessert buffet. And so I had my two youngest nieces assisting me, and I was able to discuss with them why you do certain desserts this way, why you follow this and why you follow that. And so I wanted to pass down the lessons I've learned about cooking, because unfortunately my mother, she passed and I named a business after her. She's not there to tell my nieces, her granddaughters, the history behind food and why we do certain things. So I decided to pick up that and pass that along to them. So that was a great time to get, because I had that undivided attention without the phones, like young people do, and they listen and they're like, wow, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. And that's okay. And it's like, okay, that makes more sense now. Now I know why I have to do this before that. And so it was just a great time to just talk to them about just life in general, because people seem to be unguarded when you're around food and when you're preparing food. People seem to be unguarded. It's sort of like you're the guy that cuts your hair, the lady that does your hair. You tell them your whole life story. The guy at the bar serving you, your bartender. They're like the unpaid social counselors for the world. And so, with food, it seems when you're around food, I know for me, people seem to let their guard down. And that's a good time to discuss, to pass down wisdom, just life in general. So yeah, storytelling has come full circle for my family. So
definitely. And you can't really touch your phone unless it's like the iPad for a recipe, which I don't follow, because your hands are in the food. So, I mean, it's the only time you can have undivided attention. How about you, Wendell?
So I think some of the best conversation I'm having nowadays is when people come inside my shop or the shop I used to work in McLean, and people, like they will come there to buy a piece of meat, but they come there to talk sports, talk, like what's going on, like it was more, like some of the clients in Virginia, they was just like, I don't want to buy anything. I just want to come and say hi to you, because you build up that personal relationship, and like it, and then it came all the way down here to Georgetown, and a lot of my clients from Virginia follow me here to Georgetown, and it was just like some of them just came in and they just like, look, I don't want to buy anything, I want to come to say congratulations, and I just want to come and see where you was at to make sure you're okay. And like it like that right there, it meant a lot to me, because like been around people for 15, 20 years, they become family members, they become personal friends, they become, like it's not the guy that's butchering your meat, it's the guy that you care about his family, and like it became a special bond. And so, like all over food though, you talk sports, you talk politics, you talk just about every little thing over food. So that was my answer for that question.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, I think my, when I used to go get my nails done, I think Marnay, shout out to Nail Saloon, heard a lot about, she was like, I started to see her when I was going throughout like a huge transition in my life. I'm like, she has some deep, dark secrets of mine, So I mean, like,
they do, the social councils of the world.
Yeah, they really do. They're like, it's like, I was good at nails. I didn't really sign up to be a therapist, but I guess now I am, So I'm curious, how do you see, again, there's the history of food, and, how do you see the world of food and storytelling evolving? I mean, we have, while, media is sometimes not the best, it also is great. I mean, the way that we can sit here right now and put on a virtual conference. But how do you see the world kind of evolving around food and storytelling?
I guess I'll go. One of the things I'm seeing, and I'm so glad, I think people are getting back to basics in food. My mother used to tell my brothers when we were growing up, you know, boys, you better come to the kitchen and learn how to cook because you may marry a woman that couldn't make steam. I'm like, can't make steam? What does that mean? You know, as a little kid, but now as I get older. And so unfortunately, there's almost a generation of people that don't know how to cook or cook well, anything besides the microwave. And so it's really sad in a sense because, you know, cooking is a life skill. If you can't cook, you cannot eat. And so, but I'm beginning to see a turn in a tide with people going back to basics. People, you know, realize, okay, I can't cook dry beans in 30 minutes. You have to let dry beans soak. And there's things people don't realize that, you know, it's just simple things. You know, worst case with rice, 1 cup of rice to 2 cups of water. That's just a basic, you know, percentage. And so you have to, and people, and I say that to say this, because there's a generation of children that don't realize that fish and chicken have bones. And so, because all they eat are chicken nuggets or fish nuggets and things along that line. And so, but now I'm so glad to see that movement of farm to table. And obviously with Wendell, his business is a part of that, because people are now curious to know, where is my food coming from? And so how is it being manufactured? How is it, you know, and people want to know the story, you know, of the source. And so, okay, okay, how are you doing that? And so I see that a lot, but I'm glad that we're getting back to basics until basic cooking. I mean, cooking classes by far across the world have increased because people have a lot of time on their hands, but people want to know, okay, I don't know how to cook. I need to know how to cook, because guess what? The pandemic made me realize I can't go out and eat every night. I have to cook. You know, I can only fry so many eggs and toast some bread, you know, make an egg sandwich. So people are really want to know how to cook. And with that, even when you go to cooking classes, there's a story behind the food that you're cooking. And so it's just great for me to see that. I you know, it's just really sad that we have generations of families that can't cook. I won't say the name, but there was an incident where people were getting food for the holidays because food baskets, and it came with a protein, some starches, you know, things along that, and some produce. And a young lady who had children, so what am I supposed to do with this? She didn't know how to cook it. So you're giving her this food basket of food that she doesn't know how to cook. And that's sad, because then you can't provide for your family. You don't have those life skills. And so, yeah, and that's, you know, I don't want to blame a particular franchise, but, you know, I call it the microwave generation. That's all they know what to do, microwave. And so, yeah, I'm prayerful and hopeful that we are getting back to basics of just cooking food. It's so simple. Like Wendell said, salt, pepper, a little olive oil goes a long way. It goes a long way. And I get off my soapbox, but learn how to cook.
Oh, I mean, frankly, I'm sure Wendell has comments to that, but I can't even right now because the microwave. I have had several people, one of them being my dear friend. You have to meet Erin Molly. She's in Costa Rica. And she's been telling me, she's a Gen Xer, I'm a millennial. And she's like, you should not use the microwave. And I was like, why? And so this has been my like second week without using the microwave. And I cook, you know, but the thing is like, it's because it's the microwave generation. And it's concerning because if you go back to the days of like, you know, there's that line of teaching a man to fish. I'm butchering it, but I think we all know that line. Right. And it's like, you know, you need to be able to start a fire. It's like, you need to be able to do these things to survive. There's not always going to be a microwave. And frankly, I don't think microwaves are that safe. So I'm just saying, Wendell, go ahead. Sorry.
So my thing is, I always tell people this, like, the line of business I do is, I like to educate people. I like to be an educator, and then ultimately make money at the end. But I need to educate the people on, why do I sell this food? and how to cook it up. And, you know, like I want to be that to help the community in any kind of given way, like cooking classes, like passing out recipes and like doing all the little things that like make sure people know how to cook. Like half of the people, like when I grew up, we had to cook because we didn't have money to go buy food out that much. And so my mom's, I did a Washington Post interview. I did a Washington Post interview. It got posted around my anniversary of my store. And I mentioned that, like my mom used to spend like $150 at the grocery store. And we made sure we survived. It was back in the 80s, back in the 90s. And, like we had to cook, like we probably get fried chicken from the carry out here and there. But it was just like cook the food that we got at home so we can save the money. So we go shopping with the other money, buy clothing. And so, like as we keep on going and like one day, hopefully I'm able to partnership with the government and help, like people that don't know how to cook. Maybe I do a cooking show, maybe I do a butchering thing. I'm not that far, like I'm working hard at the everyday operation part of my business. So I haven't got that far yet, but like down the line, I will like to show people how to cook.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, maybe we're manifesting a cooking show here. We're putting out in the uni. I mean, I don't know, Aaron and Wendell. I mean, I see it. I see it. But I think, that kind of leads us into our last question here about the community, right? So I think in general, the access to food and in our country, and, I think around the world, of course, there's a lot of food insecurity and food poverty, but within the US, and which we saw, particularly the pandemic, where it's been around, but I think now at least people are waking up to the food insecurity and access to healthy food is really important. So I think just if we start with the DMV region, what do you hope to communicate about food and that healthy living and cooking in the DMV?
Well, ideally, if money wasn't an option, if money wasn't an object, it would be nice to be able to go into those communities where, they're not familiar with certain type of foods from around the world. And one of the easiest ways to teach people about other communities is to teach them about what that community serves, what that community eats every day. And so it would be great. And it's on my business bucket list to be able to expose children from those communities to foods from around the world, particularly with desserts, because I want you to understand the history behind a dessert. And so, and then too, it also helps them with their school because also, okay, I'm learning about this from France and this region in France. And then this is why this grape, and things along that line. I think to expose children to the world, even though I don't have the funds to fly them around the world, but I can expose them to the world through food. And so for them to see a dessert from Europe, from Africa, from Australia, from just different parts of the world, they'd be like, oh, wow. And it opens their eyes to see there's more to life than the 4 blocks that surround my house. And so that's one of the things I would like to put out there is to expose children to the world through food, and particularly desserts. And then we can go to the other savory foods because everybody can't eat desserts every day. So, hopefully maybe Wendell and I can partner and talk about the different types of other foods from around the world as well. But yeah, I think exposing children to food from around the world is a great way to open their eyes to the possibilities, and they realize there are no limits to what you want to do, what you want to learn. So that's my business bucket list.
I love that. I have the chills. I'm like thinking a million different things of what we can do with that too. So, wow, Aaron, that's actually beautiful. That's beautiful. Wendell?
So my bucket list is starting like a butchering academy. Like, it's people don't have jobs, people don't have life skills to work with their hands anymore. So, like it's, like some people not as intelligent to want to go work in a corporate office. They might want to one day open up their own restaurant, open up their own butcher shop, and, like cut meat, seafood, learn how to be a nutritionist, or, like just work in the food industry, period. So, like if I'm able, maybe like within the next couple of years, maybe within 5 years, I would love to do an academy, like a butchering academy, like a food academy, just something that's helping out not only the inner city kids, but just everyday people. And, I'm always big on helping people. So that will be one of my dreams if it comes true.
I mean, frankly, the thing with dreams coming true, I think there's dreaming and there's manifesting. And so I think, if you're on that right path, then it's just like, I think what's really cool is that everyone's their own boss. Everyone's their own director of their own life. So, in that regard, I think we so focus on these communities individually that, of course, they need support. But I think if we look at ways to actually bond the communities and not be secluded, that's like using food, to your point, Aaron, and also Wendell, as an inclusivity and, teachable moments, which this reminds me of like when I was in corporate America, that was a teachable moment, Jen, but as ways to really bring everyone together. I think that is, putting it back to simplicity. Food is really the tool for us to get there. So I just want to really thank you both today. We'll leave some time for some of the Q&A and all that stuff that we'll get from the audience here. But before we wrapped up, is there anything, you wanted to leave the audience with, any words of wisdom or we'll be putting, of course, all the promotions and everything for both of you, since we know we have some accolades there, but yeah. Wendell, Aaron?
So many things. I'll let Wendell go first.
So, so it took me years and years to start my first company. I had a vision of starting this company maybe like 15, 10, maybe 20, maybe 30 years ago. I always wanted to start something that I could say, look, I started this company, so, I just always follow that. That was inside my heart. It was bleeding. And so, once COVID came upon everybody here in the world, I was able to still, still keep faith on, keep operating my business. And, I never gave up. And what I do recommend, young, old, my age, Black, white, Hispanic, all nationalities, don't give up. Don't give up. Keep faith in yourself. We all facing different obstacles in life right now. And we all need to keep coming together, whether it's food, desserts, anything. I always see people on the street and I speak to people. I want to speak to people. Some people turn their head, but, it's all about us coming together one day. So thank you. Thank you, Jen. Thank you for having me here.
That was good, Aaron. How are you going to follow up with that one?
Yeah, I was like, I think he pretty much said it all, but he touched on something so important. It's not giving up. A lot of times I think there's certain platforms that for the young people, they think it's things that happen overnight and things are easy, just like that. I'm gonna be a star overnight. And being an entrepreneur, small business owner, it's a grind. There's days you work, you get up early and you work late. Get up early and work late. A day off? What is that? What does that mean? What does that mean? A day off? What? The weekend? The weekends are my busiest times, the traditional weekends. So what are you talking about? So people see me now and they be like, oh, I want to be like you. No, you don't. You don't know what you don't know how many miles I've walked in these shoes. You don't know how my feet hurt, my ankles hurt sometimes, my hips hurt. I'm standing up all day in the kitchen. You don't know I'm having to offload my own equipment sometimes. You see the glory, but you don't know the story, and it's not that easy. But I will say, just because it's not going to be easy doesn't mean you should give up. And I look at back where I was this time last year, I almost closed my business because of COVID. And by the grace of God, I was able to stay viable. And then, as you know, Jen, what things have happened to me since then. So it's by the grace of God. You just can't give up. You have to have some type of faith. For me, my faith in God has got me through some unimaginable situations. And then I'll also say that whatever your dreams are, whether they're going to be a small business owner or whatever, just realize that you should manage the level of your expectations from your friends and family, because not everybody's going to see your dream or understand your dream or envision your dream, and they won't, because it's your dream. So you have to put in the work and the drudgery, and you got to put in the grind. It's a grind, because one day you will reap what you've sown. And so it will come to fruition. And so just don't give up, even because you don't know how close you are to the finish line. Don't give up. Just keep the faith, keep grinding, keep doing the right thing. It will all come together. Trust me, it will.
I love that, Erin. I think, given that yeah, Erin, I would say for you, even like this year, it's been pretty exciting. I don't know if you want to plug any of that in here, but I think that I've always, before the pandemic, I was on a hamster wheel and a rat race all the time, like trying to get to that next step, which I realized like I wasn't actually going anywhere. I was just still on the hamster wheel, like thinking all these things should happen quickly. And then I realized with the pandemic of slowing down, it's like, all right, been in business for 4 years. 2 of them was just like a blur of just going through some other stuff and kept my business alive. So it's like, let's just like believe in that and have faith and just have the direction of where you want to go, but be patient, because I think burnout is, and this could be a other conversation, burnout, it's not cute to be burnt out. You really need to take care of yourself. So thank you so much for sharing that. And this has just been a great conversation. I could always go on for hours, but we'll definitely have to do another one. And I just want to thank you both so much. I know that I have a closing outline that I have to say. All right. So thank you again for joining us for the Food Innovation, the Culinary Experience, and Storytelling panel. We're so pleased you spent this time with us, and we hope the discussion has been valuable. Please be sure to check out 1455 Literary Arts. We have, as the moderator, I'm Jen Sherman, founder of the Influencer Collective. We have Wendell Alsberg. He is the owner of Georgetown Butcher. And we have Erin Roth. She is the CEO, founder, amazing pastry chef, all the things of Miss Jo's Petite Sweets. And we will catch you next time.